Shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome back, praise the Father, to another Tuesday night Torah study hosted by MTOI. Welcome to everyone who has joined us before and anyone new for the study tonight. As I mention every week, that I'm grateful enough to be a host, and this is David Botwick-Reese up here in Edmonton, Alberta. We will read the portion and then discuss the portion. Discuss its applicability on our lives, and also see the Father's plan for salvation for His people and His Son, our Messiah, throughout the Word. And so as we begin, we have a custom here in the study to take out prayer requests and praise reports, since we gathered last time as a group in this format, which was last Tuesday. I know it seems a long time ago, but we started the book of Shemot, Exodus, last week, and we will continue getting into the plagues. Definitely a very thematic and animated portion. Of course, we know this through all of the cinematic representations of the plagues, but there's a lot here, as there is every week. So shalom, shalom, and go ahead if you have any prayer requests or you'd like to offer any praise reports. You can always type in unspoken, so we know Father knows what we need before we ask Him. But if you'd like it to be shared with the group, and for those wondering, this recording is posted on the MTOI website, so you can always go back and listen to previous years. And the recording just shows this, so people will be able to see the praises and prayers, just to let you know if there's anything you feel more comfortable sharing as an unspoken. Just want to give people that fair understanding. Okay, we have we didn't say thanks, Dave. We were both over the Dog Star and back. Congratulations, Mazal Tov. Indeed. Many blessings, and continue to offer praises for and prayers for the new husband and wife. We have unspoken prayers from Alicia and Matthew Cooper in Nebraska. Prayers for David Hayes. He's in the prayer for favor for our landlord to lower our rent. Prayers for David Hayes. He's in the ER. Okay, see that now. Prayer for favor for our landlord to lower our rent. Okay, certainly for David. Provide healing and shalom that can only be provided from above. Unspoken from Kevin Shutt. Many mazel tov and congratulations to the newlyweds. Diane in Oregon. Praises for relief of some depression and increased motivation. Prayers needed for my pets. One cat has a bladder infection. The other has been diagnosed with hyperthyroid and will need radioactive iodine treatment. Amen. Definitely our pets, animals, creations from the Father. We love them dearly, and something we see as actually a responsibility to take care of them. So indeed. Praise report for employment. Janice in Orlando. Final month without a real paycheck. Praise Yahweh. Amen. Unspoken prayer from Alana. Noed and Kelly are thanking everybody for the wonderful thoughts. Prayer for emotional healing from Sean Earls in Tacoma, Washington. Stephen Glenn Waffle, prayer for work for Steve and financial matters for us. Also, Evan and Evelyn are leaving this coming Sunday evening. We are asked for safe travel for them as they must return to California. Welcome back, Tiana. You're back in the Torah study. Amen. Praise God indeed. Prayer request for the severe depression to be lifted, and a praise for healing of my left shoulder. This is from Candace. Claudia, prayers to my father's skin issues and several unspoken to myself. Thank you and blessings. Tommy and Selena in Memphis, Tennessee. We are waiting on Tommy to hear whether he can work remotely from Cleveland. He thinks it will be fine, but we haven't gotten the official Okay. Amen. It is truly a blessing to be able to do that. So now this will be done and that favor be granted if it is his desire. Lorraine Hasbrook, I have to have cataract surgery tomorrow morning, and just now the lens fell out of my eyeglasses on the same side I will have the surgery on. Okay. Stay strong and pray for everything to go smoothly tomorrow morning. Earl from Lethbridge, prayers for managing my work. Praise for brothers and fellowship with them. Prayer for Steve Waffle needing work. Yep, echoing Steve's request above. Tammy Harvey, unspoken. Santi Lee in Toronto. Prayer for spiritual needs and preparation to mission trip to Hong Kong in mid-January for 1 month. Prayers for possible nerve tendon damage. This is from Crystal in dominant right hand. Upcoming nerve conduction test, I pray will provide needed direction. Aletha and Robert, praises Abba has given us semi-warm weather this winter and electrical heaters to keep us warm this winter, and when the electric bills got too high, he provided someone to pay them for us. Amen. Yes, to keep warm in the winter, it is a praise indeed. Have that proverbial roof over our heads, or blanket, or just to keep us warm. Dave and Alice unspoken. Yin in Honolulu. Praise Abba for revealing more character defects that I get to work on this week. Amen. Janice, prayer for travel mercies for Rabbi Steve and continued healing for Rabbi Tom. Yes, RNC, Rabbi Steve is traveling to Manitoba tomorrow morning to be conducting a funeral. There, Arthur and Linda in Manitoba. Thank you, Arthur. Prayers for safe travels for Rabbi Steve to funeral and more family as they mourn the loss of Joanne, wife of Greg. This is, the Moore family. That is their last name. And so, yes, Rabbi will be flying tomorrow morning for the funeral and then return to Tennessee. So, safe travels indeed. And to keep him warm, it is brisk up here in the prairies. We're in Alberta. I think it's actually colder probably where you are right now, Arthur. Okay. Continue to type if you have any prayers or praises in the chat box. -25. Yeah, we were at -20 yesterday, and then it warmed up today. Par for the course here in Edmonton. Perfect snowball snow weather today. Took a nice walk, and it was just that perfect snowball snow. The dog loved it. Rich and Lana, congrats to Dawid and Kelly. We're so happy for you. 77. Tom and Carmen Sardo in Fort Lauderdale. Just something that came to mind. If somebody else, I'll just give it another minute or so as people join us. 6:15 now. Just to see really just how amazing it is, in just this small group. There's 83 participants here, ranging from 1 to, maybe 5, 6 people for a family, if not more. And then you just think about, the body of Messiah as a whole, and just to see how in week to week so much happens, day to day, and really so much that we're all going through, and it's always impossible for us to share exactly everything that we're experiencing, both the achievements and the struggles, the complete picture of a human being and their experience. But it is just always wonderful to just see how we're all in need. We're always all in need. And, they range from the job to various travels to various health concerns. I mean, it's so much. And just to know that it is truly in the best hands possible in our Father in heaven as he works out his will in our lives. Manny Michelle, safe travels for Carrie. She is almost home. She's hoping to catch the end. Okay. Well, we hope to see her. 50 degrees here, I'm freezing, says AJ. Yeah, you get climatized up here in Canada, AJ. Every winter more, -20 feels like short weather. There's some days I actually go out in shorts and flip-flops when I take the dog out because your body just gets used to it. George, Lancaster, California. Prayers for meeting tomorrow with director, possibly a new position. Prayers for sale of our home. Absolutely. Rich and Lena Payne, safe travel for our daughter Zakara. Hope I pronounced that adequately as she prepares to travel to South Carolina. Tom and Carmen, unspoken prayer for our son Mario and healing for both rabbis. Greg says, I thought 32 was freezing. LOL. Well, depends if we're doing Celsius, Fahrenheit. Got multiple representation here in the room. Unspoken prayer from Michelle. There you go. Earl, shoveled in shorts today. That's Canada, eh? Got to represent. Okay, see a couple others typing. If it's about the weather, then that's a sign that we can proceed. Prayers or praises, give it another second. Okay, well, it looks like it's about wrapped up. Again, there's no, additional power or additional, meaning or importance to a prayer being read out loud, but it is nice to hear from everybody. We know that in the book of James, book of Yaakov, in terms of the earnest prayer, and one could say earnest is sincere, it's from the heart inward, and there's actually a Hebraic, a Jewish saying that also says that the prayer for a righteous one are short. And we know that our Messiah himself, it's not the words that we say, the sincerity of our heart. And so with that said, we'd like to ask one of the men to open us up in prayer, to lift all of these prayers and praises to our Father in heaven, and then also ask for wisdom and guidance as we open up this prayer, and that his Ruach HaKodesh will lead us, and everything will be done to his glory. So one of the men, I'll just switch back to the screen. I like to move off the screen and then see whose hands are up. So I get to, it's not a matter of necessarily whose was up first.
Can everyone hear me? Abba, I thank you for this Torah study. I ask you to open all of our eyes to wondrous things from your Torah. Help us to all do things your way in this Torah study, and to be patient with each other, and at the same time be able to bring our ideas together and be submissive to leadership in this Torah study. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Thank you, Daweed. And so tonight, as we continue in the book of Exodus, we have Parashat, we have Parasha, portion, translation of Parasha. We have Va'era. So if anyone would like to say what that means as we, again, set the stage for the kind of context. Again, it doesn't encapsulate everything by any means, but it is a nice way of learning a Hebrew word. And also it's a good way as we start to do this year after year that we can hear the name of a portion, and based on what we learned, based on what we studied, we can kind of connect the images together and see how the single words that we can find in the beginning of each verse in the portion, actually maybe we can start to understand what it means. Okay, let me see. I appeared, and he appears. That is correct. All of them. And so we actually have a portion in Genesis also referring to appearing, if it sounded familiar to anyone. Okay, so now we have tonight, like I said before, we will read the Torah portion, and then we will discuss it in a midrash form, led by the Ruach, and in collaboration with everyone. That's really what makes it what it is. It's not a teaching, it's not a monopoly here, but I'm simply a facilitator to do so. And so, when you raise your hand and comment, every study year after year is different, and that's really what makes it a blessing. We don't know where we will end up tonight, what daily bread we will be given, and that's the beauty of it. We can just simply wait and see. So tonight we have 9 readers. So if you would like to read, please go ahead and raise your hand as we go from chapter 6 to chapter 9. And so as I see the readers, 7, a couple more. It never hurts to have your hand up because sometimes we have technical difficulties. And so if we have more than 9, that's great because it always seems to work out. So if you've never had a chance to read before and you're new and you'd like to, feel free to make a note of that right here in the chat box. Again, no pressure, but again, it's just such a blessing for us to hear from each of you. And I seem to, now I say every week, is thank you in advance to the readers and the listeners because we need both to make the study. Okay, so I will call up each reader with the traditional prayer, the Aliyah prayer, which means going up, as we are calling you up to the Torah. And of course, we know that the Torah itself is an Aliyah up to the heavenlies, our Messiah and our Father in heaven. So first up, we have AJ. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless AJ, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, AJ, you will take us the first 13 verses in.
All right. And Yahweh said to Moshe, now see what I do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand he's going to let them go, and with a strong hand he's going to drive them out of his land. And Elohim spoke to Moshe, and said to him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, as El Shaddai, and by my name Yahweh was I not known to them? And I also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings, in which they have sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrites are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm, and with great judgments. And shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim. And you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. And I shall bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe, because of shortness of spirit, and from hard slavery. And now he spoke to Moshe, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh sovereign of Mitzrayim, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moshe spoke before Yahweh, saying, The children of Israel have not listened to me. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, and gave them a command for the children of Israel, and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, AJ. Next up, for an Aliyah to read the Torah, is Earl, fellow brother here in Alberta. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Earl, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Earl, going to finish chapter 6, verses 14 to 30.
These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok, and Palu, Hetzron, and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuben. And the sons of Shimon, and Yemal, and Yamin, and Ohad, and Yakin, and Sohar, and Shaul, the son of Canaanite woman. These are the clans of Shimon. These are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, and Kehath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei, according to their clans. And the sons of Kehath, Amram, and Yitzhar, and Hebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kehath were 133. And the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the clans of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aharon and Moshe. And the years of the life of Amram were 137. And the sons of Yitzhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zikri. And the sons of Uziel, Mishael, and Ethsaphon, and Sithri. Aharon took himself Elish-Eba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nahshon, as wife, and she bore him Nadab, and Abihu, and Elazar, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, and Abbas Yasaph. These are the clans of the Korites. And Elazar, Erhan's son, took for himself one of the daughters of Putiel as wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their clans. This is Erhan and Moshe, to whom Yahweh said, "Bring out the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim according to their divisions." They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Israel from Mitzrayim. This is Moshe and Aaron. And it came to be on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, all that I say to you." And Moshe said before Yahweh, "See, I am uncircumcised lips, and why would Pharaoh listen to me?"
Amen. Amen, Earl, and great job with the names. That was great. Next up, we have Red Family, and who will be reading from the family? Maurice. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Maurice, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Maurice, starting off chapter 7, the first 12.
Mic check. Okay. So Yahweh said to Moshe, "See, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aharon, your brother, is your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aharon, your brother, shall speak to Pharaoh, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. But I am going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh is not going to listen to you. And I shall lay my hand on Mitzrayim, and bring my divisions and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. And the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh, when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them. And Moshe and Aharon did as Yahweh commanded them. So they did. Now Moshe was 80 years old and Aharon 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aharon, take your rod and throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. So Moshe and Aharon went in to Pharaoh, and they did so, as Yahweh commanded. And Aharon threw his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the practicers of witchcraft, and they, the magicians of Mitzrayim, also did so with their magic. And they, each one, threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But the rod of Aharon swallowed up their rod.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Maurice. Next up, we have Brother Kip down in Arizona. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kip, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Kip. Continue in chapter 7, verses 13 to 25, and that'll...
All right, mic check. 7:13. And Pharaoh's heart was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, the heart of Pharaoh is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, as he goes out to the water, and you shall stand by the river's bank to meet him, and take in your hand the rod which was turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, so that they serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened. Thus said Yahweh, by this you know that I am Yahweh. See, I am striking the waters which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Mitzrites shall find it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, say to Aharon, take the rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over all their pools of water, that they become blood. And there shall be blood in all the land of Mitzrayim, both in wooden and in stone containers. And Moshe and Aharon did so, as Yahweh commanded. And he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river, in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Mitzrites were unable to drink the water of the river. And the blood was in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of Mitzrayim did the same with their magic. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. And all the Mitzrites dug all around the river for water to drink, for they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed after Yahweh had struck the river.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Kip. Next up, we have either Bob or Yvonne, who will be reading of the two. Bob, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Bob, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Bob, starting off in chapter 8, verses 1 to 15, please.
Testing. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus said Yahweh, Let my people go, so that they serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your borders with frogs. And the river shall swarm with frogs, which shall go up, and shall come into your house, and into your bedroom, and on your bed, and into your houses of your servants, and on your people, and into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls. And the frogs shall come up on you, and on your people, and all your servants. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the land of Mitzrayim. So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of the Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did so with their magic, and brought up frogs on the land of Mitzrayim. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron, and said, Pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I shall let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, Explain yourself to me. When I pray for you and for your servants and for your people to destroy the frogs from you and your houses and remain only in the river. So he said, Tomorrow. And he said, Let it be according to your word, so that you know that there is no one like Yahweh, our Elohim. And all the frogs shall turn aside from you and from your houses and from your servants and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moshe and Aaron went out from Pharaoh. And Moshe cried out to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. Two more. Oh, pardon me. And they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. And when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bob. Next up, I invite to Aliyah. Will Steve be reading? Or will it be Gwen? It will be Steve. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Steve, you will now finish chapter 8, verses 16 to 32.
Okay. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it becomes gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And they did so, and Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast, and all the dust of the land became gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did similarly with their magic to bring forth gnats, but they were unable, and there were gnats on man and beast. The musicians then said to Pharaoh, This is the finger of Elohim. But the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Rise early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out of the water, and say to him, Thus said Yahweh, Let my people go, so that they serve me. Or else, if you do not let my people go, see, I am sending swarms of flies on you and your servants, and on your people in the houses, in your houses, and the houses of Mitzrayim shall be filled with swarms of flies, and also on the ground which they stand. And in that day I shall separate the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarm of flies shall be there, so that you know I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. And I shall put a ransom between between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And Yahweh and Yahweh did so, and thick swarms of flies came into the houses of Pharaoh, and into the servants' houses, and into all the land of Mitzrayim, and to the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Pharaoh then called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Go slaughter your Elohim in the land." And Moshe said, "It is not right to do so, for we would be slaughtering an abomination of the Mitzrites to our Elohim. See, if we slaughter the abomination of these Mitzrites before their eyes, they would not stone us. Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. Then we shall slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim as he has commanded us." And Pharaoh said, "I am letting you go. Then you shall slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness. Only do not go very far away. Pray for me." And Moshe said, "See, when I leave, you shall pray to Yahweh, and tomorrow the swarms of flies shall depart from Pharaoh and his servants and from his people. But do not let Pharaoh again deceive, nor let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh." And Moshe went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moses, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart.
Amen. No, no, no. He did not let them go. The YMTOI program, great song. This is where it comes from. He did not let them go. Next up, as we near the end of Parashat Va'era, we have Mark. "He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Mark, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen." Amen. Okay, Mark. First 12 verses, now in chapter.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Go into Pharaoh and speak to him. Thus said Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and are still holding them, see, the hand of Yahweh is on your livestock in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the cattle, and on the sheep, a very grievous pestilence. And Yahweh shall separate between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Mitzrayim, and let no matter die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. And Yahweh set an appointed time, saying, Tomorrow Yahweh is going to do this word in the land. And Yahweh did this word on the next day. And all the livestock of Mitzrayim died, but of the livestock of the children of Israel not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and see, not even one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aharon, Fill your hands with ashes from a furnace, and let Moshe scatter it toward the heavens before the eyes of Pharaoh. And it shall become fine dust in all the land of Mitzrayim. And it shall cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast in all the land of Mitzrayim. So they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. And Moshe scattered them toward the heavens. And they caused boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians were unable to stand before Moshe because of the boils, for the boils were on the magicians and on all the Mitzrites. But Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said to Moshe.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Rick. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, may he bless Rick, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Rick, our second to last reader for the evening, will take us verses 13 to 22.
Mic check. And for this reason I have raised you up, in order to show you my power, and in order to declare my name in all the earth. You still exalt yourself against my people, in that you do not let them go. See, tomorrow about this time I am causing very heavy hail to rain down, such as not been in Mitzrayim from the day of its founding until now. And now bring your livestock to safety, and all that you have in the field. For the hail shall come down on every man, and every beast which is found in the field, and is not brought home, and they shall die. Those among the servants of Pharaoh who feared the word of Yah made their servants and livestock flee to the houses. But those who did not set their heart on the word of Yah left their servants and livestock in the field. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, and let there be hail in all the land of Mitzrayim, on man and on beast, and on every plant of the field throughout the land of Mitzrayim. Then Moshe stretched out his rod toward the heavens, and Yahweh sent thunder, and hail, and fire came down to the earth, and Yah rained hail on the land of Mitzrayim. Did I go too far?
One verse. It's all good. I think it concluded it well, so no worries at all, Rick. We'll just pick up where you left off. Thank you for reading. And next up, will it be Tom or Carmen reading for our final reader of the evening here, the Tuesday Night Torah Study hosted by MTOI. Tom, will you be reading? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, if Tom, you're not there, we're going to have to ask somebody else to read. Okay, I see Daweed and Kelly. Who will be reading? Be Daweed. Yes, Daweed. Okay. Only fitting. Another hearty Mazal Tov. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Daweed, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Daweed, please take us home and finish chapter 9. We'll go from 24 to 35.
Mic check. Can everyone hear me? Thank you, David. So there was hail, and the fire amidst the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Mitzrayim since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every plant of the field, and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Yisrael were, was there no hail. And Paro sent and called for Moshe and Aharon, and said to them, I have sinned this time. Adonai is righteous, and I and my people are Adonai, that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. And Moshe said to him, As soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands to Adonai, and the thunder shall cease. Neither shall there be any more hail, that you may know that the earth is Adonai's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you will not yet fear Adonai Elohim. and the flax and the barley were struck, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they were late ripening. And Moshe went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread out his hands to Adonai. And the thunders and hail ceased, and the rain was no longer poured upon the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders had ceased, he sinned yet again, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hard, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as Adonai had spoken by Moshe.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dawid. Thank you to all the readers, and thank you to all the listeners. It does take both to make this what it is. I will read the traditional closing blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah noten haYeshua. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah, giver of Yeshua. Amen. Amen. Awesome. Good stuff. Okay, and so for those who have joined us, just concluded our reading of Parsha Vayera, and we will shortly go into the discussion. Just a reminder for all those who are new, welcome. Is anybody, let's just see, if this is your first time, put a 1. Susan, Kimberly, welcome. Awesome. And then let's see, if you have been to Torah study before, at least once, now you put a 4. Awesome. Look at that. Welcome, Susan and Kimberly, indeed. Wow, so many returning brothers and sisters. Fantastic to see. So Susan and Kimberly, welcome. For wondering about the numbers, I was just asking Tanya to, if you have been to Torah study before, put a 4, and if this is your first time, put a 1. And the numbers here, this is what we use it for. So when you see the numbers flashing on the screen, this is what it means. And the number 4 doesn't mean anything particular, just sometimes we use the not so frequent numbers, the 1, 2, and the 5, for these different questions. Awesome. So welcome. And so now, as we've read, now we're going to go into the Midrash, the discussion portion. Shamash Robert, I know you had mentioned before, not too much to announce, but I'll give you a mic, as it's always good to hear from you, especially being right there in Bethlehem.
All right, thank you. I was just trying to see if there's anything. The most pressing things I've got right now is remember to keep Rabbi Steve in prayer as he travels, and also keep the family, the Moores, in your prayers as they are experiencing the loss of Joanne. For locally here, we will be having Rosh Kadesh service this Sunday at 7:30 is the service, and so I believe we're live streaming that as well, so you'll be able to join us there. Other than that, I think everything is moving right along. I'm not going to get into details about property and stuff, but Rabbi Steve did mention on Shabbat about the properties the property he's looking at and considering making an offer on. So keep that in prayer, that might come to fruition, and we may have our own fee site instead of juggling with contracts and things of that nature that always seem to make us late getting the paperwork out because we can't get them to just put down the numbers as he talks to them about it. So I think that's going to pretty much cover it for tonight.
I see a rabbi in the midst. Rabbi Steve, welcome. Give you the mic.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. All right, I just got here. Sorry for not being able to be here earlier. I'm getting ready for this trip tomorrow to Manitoba. All right, so I didn't get to hear any. I just heard a little bit of Robert talking about the property there at the end. But I did want to come on here and say hello. Appreciate David leading the study tonight, and we're going to let him continue. But I just wanted to jump in here with some quick announcement type things. Robert, which announcements did you cover already?
I mentioned Rosh Kodesh service, and then I just mentioned that the property is still under consideration. And that was about it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I know that was mentioned that I'm going to be in Manitoba tomorrow. There'll be a funeral and celebration of life for Joanne Moore on Thursday, and then I'll be back on Friday. So if you can keep that in prayer, I'm sure that was already requested during prayer time. And also especially for Greg Moore, whose wife has passed. On top of all that, he's dealing with the last legs of a flu, and so that's really made it even more challenging to deal with all these things. So, and then Arthur will be picking me up at the airport tomorrow, so I'll get to see Arthur and Linda tomorrow. Okay, and I think Mucklucks. Actually, it's going to be very nice. The weather is supposed to actually warm up by tomorrow to be in the 30s Fahrenheit, which is actually going to be pretty warm. It's been very warm down here too, so so I believe it'll be pretty good there. Yeah, tomorrow is supposed to be a high of 24, and then Thursday 33. So that's not bad. Yeah, shorts, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I don't know if shorts are appropriate for a funeral, but anyway. So announcements-wise, yes, the property is still something we're considering. There are some challenges with it. Also, please keep in prayer that my wife and I and the family have found a house to buy in Cleveland, and we have an accepted offer and a contract, but you never know. Things can always go sideways. So far, it looks like it's not a problem. Everything's going well, and we should be closing at the end of January, okay? And so we're excited about that. And then we'll be moving at that point to Cleveland. That's Cleveland, Tennessee. Yes, Rosh Kodesh will be coming up on Sunday night, January 6th. Let's see. For those of you that are part of the praise team, we will still have praise team rehearsal tomorrow night. It just won't be there. So I don't know if anybody's here from the praise team in the room, but we will. Marty's there. So Marty, yes. So Brianna will be there ready to go with the things you guys need for tomorrow night. I ask that you would help support her in getting all that done tomorrow. What else do I need to cover here? I think that'll cover it for right now. Let me go ahead and wave to everybody real quick. And if you were playing the game, I'm wearing red. I don't know if anybody was Greg was guessing blue. Alana had red. There you go. Gwen said red. Get a little beard scratch here. Okay. Yes, we'll be doing Kaddish on Shabbat, David. Okay, let me just turn that off. Love everybody. Now, I don't know if that was announced officially, but David and Kelly are now Mr. and Mrs., as it says in their name, David and Kelly Ott. So that's very exciting. We had a very nice little wedding last night. Went very well. So congratulations for you two. All right, let's see. That'll do it. All right, so David, I'm going to pass the reins back to you. I'm still preparing everything I need for the funeral and for my trip tomorrow, so I really appreciate it. But again, just wanted to jump in here, say hello. And for those of you, just for some confusion and stuff, let me just clear something up. The countries that we live in have certain celebrations that they do. The world does some of them. Things like New Year's, Veterans Day, 4th of July. These are all American, observances and stuff. And they afford us time off, days where we're not working because the government will shut down and most stores and businesses will shut down. Same thing even with Christmas. We certainly are not celebrating these things, but it does afford us time to go and be together with each other doing things that are not celebrating the event. So for example, a lot of us did get together last night just to hang out, but we were not celebrating New Year's. But a lot of people had off today, and they were able to get together and fellowship. And so we fellowshipped. We were not watching the ball drop. We were not all focused on these things. So if Rome wants to give us a day off and we could all get together, there's no problem with having that day off and we could all get together, provided we're not focusing it on or giving attention to or celebrating whatever it is Rome is trying to do. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? So the same thing where a bunch of us got together and had Chinese food and went to the movies on what the world calls Christmas, we were not doing that to celebrate Christmas. It's just that those are the only things that are open on Christmas. Okay? And so taking advantage of what Rome provides, I'm sure none of you complained who have jobs where your company was closed on Christmas and or New Year's. You probably got paid for it as a paid day off, as part of your company's paid days off. And so what we don't do is we don't participate in the celebration. Hopefully that makes some sense there. Okay? All right. Is this a marriage Kaddish? No, there's lots of different Kaddishes. If you actually go to a Jewish Shabbat services, they say Kaddish more than once, and it's for different reasons. This will be what's called the mourner's Kaddish. Okay? And we'll be doing that on Shabbat for those that are mourning the loss of a loved one. We do that often as people have asked or people bring it to our attention. Is it wrong to say Happy New Year? No, because we live in a world where the year has changed. I mean, I think all of you will be writing your checks and dating anything that has to be dated now with 2019. Because in the world we live in, guess what? It is 2019. And so if you want to wish someone well, you can also wish people a happy Tuesday. You can wish them a happy, Monday, a happy January, a happy February, happy spring, happy winter, whatever it is. It's certainly wishing somebody happy. It's not a religious observance, although it was the tail end of the 12 days of Christmas, which will lead you eventually to New Year's. Okay? That's right. Happy rainy day, happy cold day, hot day, So we're not supposed to celebrate New Year's. Well, celebrating it is the question. When the Saturnalia and the origins of Christmas come about, a lot of you are familiar with the song, The 12 Days of Christmas. Well, the 12 Days of Christmas took you from the from the winter solstice to New Year's. Okay? Now, nobody celebrates it today as I shouldn't say nobody, there's probably some, cultist little group somewhere, but the world is just celebrating the turning of time. Just like celebrating a birthday. Okay? Now, if you want to watch the ball drop, that wasn't a big deal. I mean, it's all about, entertainment at this point. I'm just saying is we gathered together just because we had an opportunity to gather together. Okay? And so, Lunis New Year's, happy wedding day for a certain couple. That's right, they got married yesterday. And they will always have that anniversary as a way to celebrate their wedding. Okay, on December 31st. But there isn't anything wrong with recognizing the passing of time, a milestone, like a birthday. I know a lot of people coming from a Jehovah's Witness background and things like that are very anti-birthdays. I don't see anything in Scripture that's against birthday. I see a couple of birthdays where some bad things happen. I see a couple of birthdays where good things happen. So I'm really not sure why we're going to buy into, one particular Christian denomination's anti-birthday mode. But you don't want to turn it into the celebration of me on your birthday. But recognizing milestones of time, the passage of time, is certainly an appropriate thing to do. Just like you would recognize anniversaries. Okay, my wife and I just celebrated our 20th anniversary a couple of months ago. So recognizing the passage of time helps you appreciate the passage of time. And as far as we all live in this world that we live in, time that we are, the way we count it anyway, just changed from the year 2018 to 2019. You can fight it if you want. You can argue against it if you want. It won't change a thing. Okay, yes, Yana, you can look. All right? But the point was that the point of our gathering was not to get there to make a big deal out of the new year, as opposed to just using it as an excuse to get together and spend time together. Okay? And so hopefully that makes some sense to everyone. So no, we're not against the marking of time, the recognition of the movement of time. Hey, Roberts, that's good. That's right, Dowie. Good move. You're almost always going to have a 3-day weekend or a couple of days off for your anniversary every year. Brilliant. All right. So that being said, let me turn the mic back over to David Batwa-Grease, who will go ahead and continue through the Midrash portion. And I probably will not be back in the room. Robert, if you could just go ahead and close it when we're done, that'll be great. Like I said, I'm in the middle of getting ready for with my notes and with and the funeral service and packing and everything. So I will be getting on a plane in the morning.
Okay, Shalom, Rabbi. Prayers for safe travels indeed. We'll wave to you from a couple provinces over here in the prairies. Okay, now we will continue with the Midrash discussion here for Parsha Vayera. And again, said before, we like to look at this from multiple levels, for the portion to see how it connects in multiple aspects of our lives. Of course, we see where the Father's plan for salvation is. We see Messiah in the portion. We see the new concealed, the New Testament, that is, the Brit Hadashah. We can see how the Old is revealed, Old Testament, the Tanakh in the New Testament. So many ways we can look at it. And so feel free to type in here in the chat box or raise your hand if something comes to mind. I'd like to go chronologically. It's not a strict rule by any means, because as you've seen in before studies, we jump around and kind of see where the Ruach takes us. But yeah, it just helps us to organize, to take it chronologically. So if you go ahead, we'll start in chapter 6 and then make our way to chapter 9. Questions, comments, just type them in or raise your hand. So I see Steve Waffle has a hand up first, and multiple attendees are typing. So go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I always try to see how I can look at this for today for me. And so the first thing that comes to mind is, how often would I or can we don't listen due to our shortness of spirit, or maybe that would be attitude or hardness of experience. So somebody's trying to tell us something, our experience is different than what we are being told, so we fail to recognize good counsel and don't do anything. So that's what I got to begin in chapter 6. So it'd be good to recognize when we're being bullheadedness, and take a second look at what we're being told rather than digging our heels in. Alrighty, thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Steve. You're referring to verse 9 in chapter 6. It says, depending on your translation, but the Hebrew there is definitely the idea of shortness of spirit. And so we can say dispirited, faint heart, lack of will, impatience, all things that we can find ourselves short of. And we know we do fall short, and so important to strengthen those elements of the fruit of the Spirit. Again, defined by Elohim, not defined by us or modern Western love and joy and peace and patience, but as according to the Father and His will and the nation of Israel. So thank you for that. Greg and Mary, similar question. Shortness of spirit and hard slavery. Could that spirit us and the slavery the world? Could that spirit us? Be us, perhaps? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see Egypt. Just close the door here. Egypt as a, symbol, and Egypt as a representation for the dominance and the distress and the slavery that we have to come out of. We know we are called to come out of her, my people. And Egypt actually meaning, Hebrew there, distress, despair. And so there's a lot to be gleaned here from the coming out of Egypt. Something we actually can connect to the comment by Tom and Carmen about the 4 cups of the Passover Seder. We see here in chapter 6, verses 6 and 7, the basis, the foundation for the 4 cups. So if you've never heard that before, and we'll connect this back to your comment, Greg, about coming out of Mitzrayim, coming out of Egypt. And so we have the 4 cups here, and we can just read this because there's so much here. It's a beautiful, beautiful image, the journey into the land, and also journey for ourselves as we've been called out and called to walk worthily in the footsteps of Yeshua by his shed blood. So we see here, I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm, and with great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim. And you shall know that I am Yahweh Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. Just go into verse 8, and I shall bring you into the land, which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. So we see here this plan, the 4 cups, the bringing out, sanctification, the deliverance, the redemption, the acceptance. Yeah, thank you, Arthur. You typed it in right there. Set apart, to bring you out, to deliver, to redeem, and finally acceptance. So thank you for that. That is very handy, and that is what the 4 cups are for. This is the process that we see, ourselves go through in our walk, that we are brought out, that we are set apart, we are sanctified to then be brought to the fullness and to be used as vessels for Elohim, and then completely delivering us out of our trespasses, and then a redemption takes place, and finally an acceptance. Beautiful image. And so connected back to your comment, Greg, in terms of the coming out, yeah, we have to come out from various aspects of our slavery, to our sin, to a system where we prefer that over Yahweh's system. And so we have to be called out and hearken that and really see that process. And just a comment on those 4 cups, something that I think would be a beautiful picture that we see here in the plan for salvation, is that sanctification that first step, being set apart, right, sanctifying something, that is actually what the word Kiddush means. And so this is something we actually talked about on our Beth Yachad Erev Shabbat here in Alberta, that very beautiful image that Kiddush, the Kiddush cup, it actually means sanctification. And we see here in the Kiddush that we are blessing over the wine, or the grape juice. And we know our Messiah said, "This is my blood." And we know the custom of the Kiddush and wine dating all the way back to Genesis with Melchizedek bringing out the bread and the wine. And so we even see here, embedded within the understanding of Brother Judah, that Kiddush, meaning sanctification, is actually directly regarded and involved in the preparation of Israel as the bride of Mashiach. Because also Kiddushin, and I'll put this in here, relates to betrothal. And so a beautiful image that in Messiah saying, "This is my blood," that we have the word for sanctification in the blessing over the Kiddush, right here, blessing in that first step, and then also in terms of coming out of the world, related to what you said, Greg, Hamotzi, actually means he who brings out, he who brings forth. And so we see a beautiful image in there. This goes all the way back to the 4 cups, this plan of salvation and bridal preparation out of Egypt. And so, yeah, excellent point, Greg, that we need to be aware of our shortness of spirit and our lack of will and our faint heart, and put it in the hands of the only one who can give us that fullness of spirit, that fruit of the Spirit, that heart and will to come out of the system and be taken as his people. Let me just scroll up and see what. And of course we know in terms of the blessing over the bread, he who brings forth, and we have Yeshua as the bread of life. So just some beautiful images there. And so just when we read here, and thank you for pointing that out, Tom, and typing it out, Arthur, the 4 cups here in verses 6, 7, and 8, that you can also make the connection to the weekly Kiddush that we say on Shabbat, or every night that you might do, that might be custom in your home. That there's a direct connection there as well in terms of the sanctification and the plan that we are called to plan to walk this out. Okay, let's see. I see Candace says Pharaoh wanted to wait one more day for the frogs to leave. Could that be like some people want to wait one more day for a sin to leave? Yeah, completely possible. Again, we all can relate to it in different ways. And so we know that Pharaoh here, and there's some interesting aspect of the heart hardens that we can definitely talk about. That, let's put it this way, when we have a list, a to-do list, right, and then maybe it's something, a not-do list, right, with some aspects of our behavior that we need to work on and iron out, the things that we like to do, we will do first. And so then on the reverse, we're going to put off the things that we don't want. And so it's definitely a possibility there. We know Pharaoh had his self-interest. We can go into this as we go into chapter 8, but he's definitely, when he's saying, yeah, okay, go ahead, also then connect it to the flies, but don't go too far. He was still, waiting and relying on the Israelites for connection to his, empire. And so he definitely had self-interest. So yeah, definitely a possibility there. Okay, Rachel says, it occurs to me that Yah says he does what he is doing so they will know he is Yahweh. And after the children of Israel didn't listen because of shortness of spirit and hard slavery, he went and showed Pharaoh without a doubt that he was Yahweh and told Pharaoh that too. Several verses say he does this to show he is Yah who controls everything. Amen. Amen. And we actually can see there's kind of a grouping of the plagues. Of the first 3 kind of go in threes, and then the 10th is a culmination of that, actually very similar to what you said, Rachel. And that basically in the first 3, And you can see this in the Hebrew, actually, in the phrasing of it, that it says, ask Moses to go stand, right? And so that they can see. And then the next time, it's, that they can not just see that he exists, but that what happens. And then finally, the uniqueness and complete set apartness of our Elohim. So kind of the three different groups, you could say the existence, Elohim's providence, and then finally his uniqueness. And that culminates in the 10th, that Pharaoh didn't understand the previous 9. So, a takeaway for us as well, that we not only have to know he exists, and to know how he controls everything, but also his uniqueness, an element of relationship and an element of love and intimacy that is beyond just knowing that he exists and just seeing that he controls everything, but also appreciating his uniqueness. So definitely, thank you for that, Rachel. Aaron says, and then the reward of salvation being brought into the land kingdom at the end. Amen. That's the ultimate goal. And actually a note on that, so thank you, Aaron, and I have the other comments below as well. It's interesting that in chapter 6, right, we see the Almighty telling Moshe what he's going to do to bring them out. And then he goes into the divisions, right? And then all of a sudden it seems like, okay, kind of this random, placement of names and the different sons and everything, and clans of tribes and the orders. Does anyone have a thought on that? On maybe why perhaps this is mentioned here before it continues? Let people kind of weigh in on this. And I have a thought. It doesn't mean it is the thought. In fact, quite the opposite. But that's something that came to mind for me. So yeah, possibly why this mention of divisions and sons and organization here? Moshe has to meet with heads, leadership. Sure. Again, I'm not ever going to say in a position that is incorrect, unless we can definitely see that the context yields something else. This is the beauty of the word, the different layers, leadership, structure, chains of command. Why did they talk only about the first 3 sons? I don't know. Probably a commentary out there, but I didn't study that out in this time. So I'll give you my thought on this as other people are typing. To prove the legitimacy of Moshe and Aaron. I think that's definitely a piece of that. We saw that last portion as well, the idea of going and meeting with the leaders. And I think all of these are correct. And what I'm going to say is not negating then any of these. It's just adding to it as well. And I'm in this with you as well. I'm studying this out. There's not an elevation of me just because I'm the one talking. My idea that I just read it today, and yes, Tanya, I did see your question, was the fact that perhaps that we see that in verse 6 and 7 and 8, right, that it take as his people, right, and bring us into the land, that this is not an individual deliverance. And then possibly then it goes into the structure of the people, mentioning that this is, we can see here the divisions bringing out, but this is a group effort. This is a community. This is a nation. So all of this, what you said, connects to that, exactly with the heads of the families and the leadership. And so we know that we are individually called, but we are not then individually called to be individual. We are individually called to then be a part of a community, because that community is the one that will make up the bride of Messiah to then be married and enter the kingdom, which goes back to Aaron's comment of ultimate salvation. We have to be a part of that in order to be a part of it all. And so, another idea that of course we all have our individual gifts and talents and, different joints of the body, as we can see mentioned by Rav Shaul in the book of Ephesians, among other places, that we all work together, but that we cannot just stand on our own and think this is an individual aspect. Exactly, there's no lone rangers. Okay, so really quickly, Taina, in terms of the difference between Israelites and Jews, and we're going to speak scripturally. Jews, as we know modern today, are the basically visible identity of brother Judah, one of the 12 tribes. And so Jews, modernly now, are representing that tribe. And so yes, there is a difference in the fact that basically all Jews are Israelites, but not all Israelites are Jews. We have 12 tribes, and we know that the gathering of the rescattered is to take the 10 lost tribes, brother Judah kind of amalgamating with both Levi and some of Benjamin. And so I hope that clears that up. But when we're speaking about scripture and speaking about the ultimate plan and a nation, it's always Israel, which one then was disconnected in the tribes and then will ultimately be regathered. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, let me scroll up. Crystal says she has a note here, a reference to Romans 6:16. We are a slave to whom we serve. Exactly. And this is an idea with the the plan for salvation, the plan for the marriage here, is that we're not called to just be single and free of everything and just on our own. This is to be brought into the service. We see here that it's that our Elohim is saying, bring them out so they can serve me, not just bring them out so they can do whatever they want. And so we see again these two side-by-side paths of the love for Elohim that leads us to then guarding his ways because we love him. And that is the aspect of it, I think, as well, relating to that uniqueness and appreciation of who he is. Okay, so thank you, Crystal. Agree. And yeah, and so Arthur says, so broken, beaten down, they could not even listen to Moshe with a message of hope. Exactly. He's bringing them the message of ultimate hope for them, and they're broken, beaten down. And so we have to be very mindful of our broken down, beaten down spirit, that often that can alter the way we think about things and hear things. We've all been there. When we are not feeling 100%, everything seems a little bit dimmer, but that's not because things are actually dimmer. That's because we're not feeling, our best. Crystal, I don't know what you're referring to. 9 to 12 is that verses in 6. I mean, I think we're referring to that. If you're referring to uncircumcised lips, Aaron just added that. So let me see. Israelites went through the first 3 plagues, correct? That is definitely the common understanding, yes. And then there is a separation that happens after that, and so we can possibly see in terms of future events that there will be some sharing of the tribulation before the separation in the great judgments. Yanni says, Abba uses unclean animals in the plague and blood we are not to eat. Then sickness comes, and at the end death. Could this be a message to us? What happens if we don't eat clean? So now there is so much sickness in the world. Hailstorm is from Abba, and today we see he's still looking at the world. Just a thought. Shua said we don't know where the wind comes from or where it goes. Abba control the weather, I think. Okay. He allows and controls everything. Everything is under his domain and will, even allowing Hasatan to be the spirit and the ruler of the world at this time. And so definitely in relation to unclean animals, we can see even, with the plague, Black Plague, that there was, accusations actually even towards the Jewish community because they weren't getting sick. And so we can see a relation here in terms of, Abba protecting them through them protecting his ways, because his ways are to keep us safe. And it's beautiful that the clean food laws are just brilliantly designed. They're not arbitrary by any means. They have its place, a purpose, just like we need to find our place and purpose. Okay, let me go down. Mixed multitude, see that? Agreed. Emphasize community. Levites, are not Benjamin and Levi included in the representation? Yeah, that's what I was, I said that, maybe I mentioned that too quickly. That yes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are that representation. And now, as you're well aware, David, when people say, oh yes, I'm Jewish and I'm a Jew, they think of it as this all-encompassing aspect. And And our brothers in Judah, they look at scriptures as the deliverance of the Jewish people alone. And we understand their understanding. We understand their role as well. So we are not to attack or belittle that. We have to respect the word and understand where they're coming from and the understanding that they have at that time. But exactly, there are 12 tribes, and as we covered at the end of Genesis, the end of Bereshit, the 12 beautiful tribes that paint that picture, and I could just say it again here because I think it's just so beautiful. The 12 tribe reality, when you look at the translation of the meanings of the names, and you put it together, it says, I will praise Yah, for he has looked on my affliction and granted good fortune. Happy am I, because my wrestling has made me forget my toil. Elohim hears me and has joined a husband to me. He has purchased me a dwelling. Elohim will add to me the son of his right hand. So without all 12, we don't have this full, beautiful picture of our deliverance. So we need all 12. That includes Judah, but not limited to them. Okay, so Aaron asked about uncircumcised lips. Anybody have a thought on that? I'll copy some of your notes here so I don't lose the comments. Linda says, have a rabbi note from previous teaching regarding uncircumcised lips, untrained, unlearned. Said Bob Mivan, Moshe wasn't born and trained in Torah, so maybe why he felt unqualified. Unwilling. Okay, any other thoughts on the uncircumcised lips? That's definitely the kind of another common question we have. And actually, I'm surprised we didn't talk about verses 3 and 4 yet. We can mention that. Still got plenty of time. So yeah, so again, there's multiple levels. We have, of course, we know Pardes, the Peshat, the Remez, the Drosh, and the Sod. The levels of understanding, the simple, the straightforward, the hinted at, the allegorical, and then the kind of deep and secretive. Not a controlled speaker. He was the color red. Quite possible. I think he predated the color code by just a couple years. Not untrained, not good at speaking in front of many people, or felt he was not a leader. Yeah. See, you guys, all of this piecing together, and that's the beauty of it, right? Shaky voice. Yeah, I think there's a couple aspects of it. I think there's Linda's who said about untrained, unlearned. I think that's an aspect of it, and I don't know if I saw Raymond, but Raymond has said a couple times in previous years, and I'm going to mention it on his behalf because I don't see him, is that there's a connection in Leviticus, I think it's 19, verse 23, if it brings to mind, the idea of eating from the fruit, in terms of the fruit must not be, yes, it is Leviticus 19:23, you cannot eat of it when it is still uncircumcised. I see your hand, Dawid, just give me one moment. So concerning uncircumcised lips, yeah, and so it's possible in that connection there, and Raymond loves this connection about that we must not eat of the fruit until it is allowed and properly given fruit in terms of its circumcision process. And so this relates to being unqualified, untrained, and so we must not eat of the public fruit of those training and ready to do so. And so Moshe, very possible here, was looking at the fact that he was gone for a while, and so he was not comfortable possibly speaking the language. Maybe he did not want to upset his older brother and respect him. Also possibly could have had some sort of speech impediment. Dawid, go ahead if you'd like to continue on that aspect of the uncircumcised. I mentioned it. Okay, not sure which part it was, but the Hebrew idiom there is definitely an aspect of obstructed, covered, deficient, blemished. So yes, he could have been not qualified. He could have felt intimidated by Pharaoh and his wise counsel and not ready like the fruit trees in Leviticus 19, not fluent after many years away. Everything that you hit on is a possibility of that as well. Language difficulties in Egyptian. Exactly. Okay, let's see. So you can see all of the various levels there, whether you hit on it from the aspect with his brother, with Aaron, even possibly thinking to himself, wait a second, I went to the Israelites and I didn't do too well with them. Now I have to go to Pharaoh? Maybe I just need to, back down a little bit. And I see David and Amy mentioning that humility. Okay, wouldn't Moshe have known Torah? Well, remember he was born Israelite, and he was nursed and raised, of course, but then he was immersed in the Egyptian culture. And so we know this is Torah, meaning the ways of the Father that we know are timeless and before the written and given at Sinai. And so we don't know to what degree he was familiar with it, but he was away for a while. And so it's very, very possible that what he's looking at, and we can connect this to actually verses 3 and 4 in chapter 6, is a feeling of unqualifiedness, a feeling of uncertainty, and the language difficulties that Dawid mentioned. Yep, right there. It's important to remember he had been out of the Egyptian loop for 40 years. Right? So imagine, you have a job, right? And not just the language, right? But the actual language of the job, meaning the slang, the abbreviations, you understand, you have the connections, you understand how things work. And then you leave that job for 40 years, right? Go tend to some sheep or do something else, right? And then go back to that job, right? It's going to be very intimidating to go back, let alone stand up and say, okay, well, you have to let everybody go now. Because actually these employees that you're employing actually belong to, this neighboring company over here. So yes, he knew Torah, but not relationally. And so we can just go into that, unless I missed any questions. Before we go into the plagues, yes, so just to clear up in terms of verses 3 and 4, in terms of the name, because we see, and often a question is, okay, well, it says, I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, and by my name, Yahweh, was I not known to them. And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings. Now go down to verse 6. Say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh. And so any thoughts on this, the different presentation of the name, as we, of course, know that the name of Yahweh was revealed and is mentioned beforehand. It connects to David and Amy's comment about not relationally knowing. Yes, correct. That's what I'm mentioning, David, Amy. So why then the difference here? A possibility, again. Familiarity. Okay. Definitely an aspect of that. Intimate versus vague. Okay. Let a couple other people type in as I continue here. So again, in the Hebrew, it's not written here that his name was not made known to them, but by his name was not known to them. Okay. And so it's basically almost saying that the patriarchs, right, was known, or they knew Yahweh as the maker of the covenant and the promises. And then Moses in the generation would know him, El the Almighty Hashem, as the one who fulfilled the covenant. There you go, Mark. Yeah, making the promises versus fulfilling the promises. Thank you, Mark. And so, yes, El Shaddai is an aspect of character, meaning the Almighty, the All-Provider. And so it's essentially basically saying he, the Almighty, and this is a commentary I have here, he wants us to know him as a personal promise-making and promise-keeping God. And so he revealed himself in that character aspect of making those promises. And now he's revealing himself in the character of fulfilling them. So it actually doesn't have anything to do with the name itself, but basically the attribute. You can think of it like that. By these attributes I made myself known to them, and by these attributes I will make myself known to you. Okay, Arthur Linda, chapter 6, a thought, who was Moshe and Aaron's mother. Amram took Yocheved as wife, his father's sister. Amram was son of Kehath, who was son of Levi. Therefore, Yocheved was daughter of Levi. She was probably of some age when she bore Aaron and Moshe. Thank you, Arthur. And yes, and Amram there, the son of Kehath, the son of Levi, also shows why Aaron there was, counted on and, next up in terms of fulfilling the priestly duties of the household. Okay, I have some comments here. I heard recently that each of the plagues upon Egypt was actually a god that they worshipped. Is this true? So again, it's not a matter of true or false, but can be the layers of Scripture. And so there's definitely an aspect of that commentary of taking the plagues and looking, and we see in that chapter 8, and so it connects very well. I'm not sure who made that comment. Of taking basically the gods they worshipped exactly, and then giving them an exact plague to show that their worship of that gods was pointless and fruitless. And so, yes, that's one aspect of the commentary that I think we can look into in terms of the river. Right, there was a complete worship of the river and worshiping of the frogs, and we can go down there, right? The aspect of Egypt, being this powerhouse with their many gods. Dawid adds about the name, it is a common, direct, literal translation of, that's the Yud He Vav He, the Tetragrammaton. Yahweh is eternal one, at least among the Orthodox Jews. And so, yes, and so we look at the plagues again, and we see, there's so many, it's impossible for us to grasp the exact reasons for every single decision Elohim has made. But we look at that and we see the playing out with the magicians, right, who are doing each of the same plagues up until they realize it is the finger of Elohim. Up until they realize that they can no longer do this, and it is only of the Almighty above who is the one providing this. So almost a good kind of mindfulness there, that it can be very difficult for us to determine between a counterfeit and a real. Because say take any person, right, maybe not affiliated with Moses or Pharaoh in that situation, and show them the results of the judgments, right, of the signs and the wonders of the plagues, and you wouldn't, on face value, knowing, if you didn't know where they were coming from, be able to tell the difference. And so that's a sign of endurance and perseverance, of us really needing to see this out and not necessarily connect the dots and say, oh, well, this is definitely the Almighty behind this. Or even the other way, right? Oh, this is definitely the adversary behind this. So I think a mindfulness there of, and you see this with the magicians of Egypt, that up until a point they were able to mimic. And we see this with Hasatan. We know he is the imitator. So we must become Israelites, being able to discern and determine the counterfeit from the real. David Amy, 7:20-25, and thank you. I had this copied and pasted, but thank you for repeating it. Aaron struck the water, Yah struck the water. Our participation is Yah's plan, is our obedience. He could have stricken the water. He allows us to participate. Amen. Absolutely true. And we know that he works through humans, that we are to be his vessels. After all, we are the body ourselves. And so that participation, it's beautiful. And yes, he could do it himself. He can do everything himself. We really don't have a purpose except for the fact that he has given us one. That sign of obedience, that sign of trust. Amen. That we have a part in this. And he has been gracious enough and loving enough to grant us that part. And then we have to be wise and loving to demonstrate that. I mean, give you an example, and we can go on. I see Hoffman's have a question about chapter 9. Exactly, to bless and build our faith. So let me give you just two parallels. It's the idea of respect and love. Okay? So is it possible, and we'll do some ones and twos here. Don't worry, I've copied everybody else's comment. Is it possible in a relationship, we'll just take a father and a son, right? Because we see this in Scripture. This is the ultimate example we have in our faith. Is it possible that we need exact balance, and we see this in the two great commands of respect and love. That a father, okay, let's take the child. If the child respects their father, but doesn't love him, this child, will do everything they say, but might kick back because they're just being forced to do so. Would you say that's a possibility? If a child who does not have love for their father might rebel and kick back, even though they respect. So there needs to be that love. It's beyond just, might he will, says Steve Hall. Exactly. It can't just be do this because I said, and we know this from Rabbi said that your children and us too, we need to come to a point where we're not just doing this for our parents, right? Even for our leadership, we have to be able to do this for ourselves, that we have it internally. To obey without respect, still consider honoring. I don't know. I think I'd be unable to tell you exactly what line honoring is. I think there's an aspect of honoring, of course, but to obey without respect, I don't know. I don't have children, and so I don't know the exact aspect of that feeling and relationship, but you'll be able to, you have that experience. And so then on the flip side, a child who loves but does not respect might, in some situations, maybe cross a line, right? Maybe it's not the right place. Maybe it's not the right time, right? It's not that, they don't have the love, but they need to have that respect to know, K-N-O-W, when no, N-O means no. And that is that fine line. And so we see here, and so thank you for bringing that up in terms of the allowing to participate, that we need this balance between love and respect. To love our Heavenly Father and to respect Him by doing what He asks for us, and also respect Him by doing what He asks for us, but also to love. So we are doing it willingly and not just because. Okay, what else I see? Someone said chapter 7, verses 1 and 2, that the purpose of a prophet is to shown to be the one who speaks the message of Elohim. Amen. Not only just speaking of what will come, but divinely speaking. So that is with authority, and that authority could be referring to events past, future, and present. So thank you for that. Nolan, in chapter 9, do we find ourselves praying for the rain and the hail to stop, but as soon as the storm is over, we turn and sin again? We turn to chapter 9. That's a beautiful image there, Nolan. Thank you. And that can go into the hardening his heart. Oh, thank you, Hoffman family, for pouring that, connecting. And exactly, Nolan. Is it in us? Are we praying this just for the temporary relief of our situations, but we don't really want to possibly change our heart that would then prevent those situations from happening? That heart is everything. It's that heart circumcision that we're looking for. So, do we find ourselves praying for that rain and hail to stop? But then we turn and go back, because all we want is relief, not actual repentance. No worries. Welcome. And so we'll address this hardened heart thing, because I think it's beautifully brought to life, these final two questions here, or comments, by Nolan and the Hoffman family, in terms of, doing it out of fear rather than true repentance. Isn't harden better translated strengthen, as in strengthen the way it would go? Yes, I think there's definitely an aspect of that in the Hebrew. You're correct, and that's been covered on studies past. And so we can look at basically, and this doesn't change necessarily the meaning of the context, in terms of the strengthening and the way it would go. So we see here the Hoffman family asked these, do you think Pharaoh kept sinning because there was no true repentance as Yah hardened his heart? What can we learn from this? Does it get to a point that after so much sinning, Yah ultimately hardens our heart? Amen. Well, that is a beautiful segue to actually the point I wanted to make in terms of hardening the heart. So we actually see in Proverbs 16:9, right, this idea of that Yahweh leads a man along a path which we choose ourselves. I'll put that Proverbs 16:9. And we see in connection to Ephesians, actually, the idea of the fact that the hardening of heart due to the fact they were not in Teshuvah, right? We can see that in that's Ephesians 4:18. Actually, I'll just read that for you because I think it connects beautifully to the portion in terms of the idea of hardening. At what point, like Hoffman family asked, does Yah actually let us up into that complete hardening after we have hardened ourselves? So in verse 18, I'll just start with 17. So this I say, and you'll have to read from chapter 1 to understand why he's saying, so this I say, and witness in the Master that you should no longer walk as the nations walk. So coming out of Egypt, we see this, in the futility of their mind, right? Not witnessing, not accepting the plagues and the signs that have been given to them. Like Pharaoh, having been darkened in their understanding, having been estranged from the life of Elohim, so completely godless life, the true God, because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart. And so, we can see possibly if a man wants to be good, man, woman, right, Israelite, then Yahweh will lead them towards goodness. But if we want to travel an evil road, well, Yahweh can help us do that as well. And so we see that here, and thank you, Daweed, for bringing that to life, the idea of strengthening the way it would go. Okay, let's do ones and twos. Do you think Pharaoh actually wanted to let Israel go? Twos across the board. No, of course not. He relied on them for his economic power. He had a slave force, the labor force. I mean, come on. This is Pharaoh, right? This is Egypt. And not just the sandy pyramids we think of now. We must think of the lush, fertile Nile Delta with everything they had, the riches, okay? If he didn't, they wouldn't have been slaves in the first place. Okay, so now let's look at this, that he didn't want to let them go. Okay, and so we have actually him in the first 5 plagues, 5 or 6, I believe. He actually is, if you look at the Hebrew, it is not clear, and it doesn't actually say that Yahweh hardens his heart. We actually see that a Pharaoh hardening his own heart. And then it actually goes into the final 3 or 4, I can't remember off the top of my head, Yahweh actually hardening his heart. And I think this is a good way to wrap it up, and I'll answer those final questions as well, is that he did not want to let them go. And so then he is stubborn in his mind. He does not want them to go. He does not want to see, despite him seeing, right? We see this with the cattle, that not a single cattle of the Israelites was killed. He's witnessing it. He's seeing it. And so he hardens himself because he does not actually want to get to that place. He does not want to let them go. And then Yahweh says, okay, fine. I will let you go that way. Also possibly, maybe think about this, that if Yahweh had hardened his heart, right? And we see this, right, at the end of chapter 8. Yes, that if he had just did it out of, and we see the beautiful loving kindness of our Elohim, is that, yes, I don't think it was the same Pharaoh. That's what the scriptures, the overall context seems to indicate this was a different one. But that if Pharaoh had just let them go out of panic and fear, then there actually was not Elohim providing him, even Pharaoh, just like all of us, a chance of true repentance. Because if it was just out of fear and panic, and Yah able, of course, to put down his heavy hand, then maybe it's not giving even Pharaoh a chance to repent. So what does our Elohim do? All wise, all knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent. He strengthens Pharaoh's heart and actually makes it more stubborn to say, don't let them go. So then Pharaoh can actually choose of himself to let them go or to not. So even with Pharaoh, we can possibly see an instrument of the need for teshuvah, the need to repentance, that even in him, Yahweh is still giving him that chance. Just scroll up. Arthur and Linda say, how about praying for the rain and hail to stop, and then we don't even give thanks? Exactly, we're just praying for the next storm that hasn't even come yet. Bobby Yvonne, in terms of 8:31, sounds like Yahweh listened to Moshe. What does this mean? Okay, let me scroll down. Anyone have a thought? Still got a couple minutes. On 8:31 of Yahweh doing according to the word of Moshe. As I read, People want to answer there. Mark says, a good picture for me of the hard heart is callous, like developing calluses through continued and proper action. Amen. We even see the idea of numbness, right? And our hearts become fat and lazy, callous. (4:18) did Yah cause or allow the hardening of chapter 4? I don't see in 4:18. But again, we also have to look at the beginning. Yah is also talking about what will happen, not necessarily that he has already done it, right? He has, because he knows the beginning from the end. Power struggle, battle against Yah and Pharaoh's mind. Right, and this is connected to the plagues, right? That ultimately Pharaoh has to realize that him, right? He's being worshipped as a god. Of all the plagues, he is the one being worshipped as a god, culminating in the 10th one, that Pharaoh has to get off his, what? His self-sovereign, literally. Talking about self-sovereignty, we have a actual literal image of self-sovereignty here, off the throne and submit. And so definitely a power struggle there. And Yah is actually giving him still the mercy to do so, to say, I will give you this chance to actually repent. It's amazing how the hardening of our arteries stops the flow of blood and stops life. That is, the hardening of our attitude stops in our ability to act. Amen. Would anyone believe Yahweh is who he says he is if Pharaoh didn't put up a fight? That's true. This is Egypt, right? This is not just for us to see, right? This is for the world to see. And we see this in subsequent chapters, that people heard of what happened in Egypt. The witness is for everyone, because this is, for all intents and purposes, in terms of, I haven't done this a complete historical study, this human right here, this Pharaoh, right? The title, the position, not necessarily the person himself, represented the might of mights on the human level. Note about authority. Yah didn't take Israel out without going through Pharaoh. Exactly. He went to the top and said, through Moshe, right? We can see beautiful imagery of messengers, right? And discipleship and relating to the authority and the charge we've been given. Aaron says both hardenings ultimately bring death, which is a Steve Waffles comment. Even Amy 8:31 says more of Moshe participating obedience. Is this Yahweh fulfilling his promise to Moshe that he would be like an Elohim? As in an Elohim, and we know that, well, possibly we don't know exactly what happened, that he didn't actually make Moshe a god, but in terms of the position to Pharaoh, that Pharaoh would look at him like an Elohim. So yes, definitely, Jonathan, this is basically an endorsement, right? A support of Moshe's word. Also a participation of obedience, right? A possible aspect of prayer as well, right? At that participation element that is required, and then Yah basically responding and giving that ability to say, this is our relationship, right? Demonstrating that they have a relationship, which is really important, especially knowing Moses's previous concerns and insecurities. Footnote says a mighty one in reference to being like an Elohim. Yes, thank you, Crystal. Yes, basically you will be like a mighty one to Pharaoh, right? You will, as we know, right, when it even references the Elohim of other nations, it is them looking at those Elohim as mighty ones, not that they were actually mighty. So in this case, yes, Pharaoh would look to Moses like a mighty one because of the power and authority given to him. Okay, let's see. Yes, Pharaoh thought he was a god. It's just about 8 o'clock, so we'll wrap this up soon. Kevin says, excellent point. If Pharaoh, as a descendant of so-called gods, had let them go, the Lord's people would never have recognized what Yah had done. So you have to look, Crystal, in terms of the strengthened, hardened. There's a couple of Hebrew words being used there in terms of the idea of stubborn and hardened. So I definitely recommend studying that out, with the help of a local fellowship or discipleship environment if you have access to. But we can see it in terms of the actual words, the context of Pharaoh clearly being stubborn in his own way, self-sovereign, and then basically push in that direction, strengthened in his own way, and our Elohim saying, okay, this is the way you want to go. Here you go. I'm going to give you up to that. Okay. Comment about Hasatan and Job. Okay. Not sure what that was referred to. And so, we have a comment by Hoffman, and then we'll wrap up. I just want one final thing to say. Since Pharaoh was the king of Egypt, when we are called out of Egypt, is the Most High asking us to let our flesh nature thoughts go to come and submit under his word? Absolutely. Come out of her, my people. Right? We have to get completely out of that system, whatever it is. We each have our own system, and it might even be our own system. Right? It doesn't have to be an ism or an eanity. It could be anything, whatever system that we were enslaved to through our own hardness of heart. And then to be called and given that choice, when we have to be very careful not to harden our heart again. And like Nolan said, that once those storms go, not to go back and harden our own heart. And then a comment on that, and we'll wrap up with a prayer. It's actually a quote that I found. It's actually from C.S. Lewis, but I really liked it because I thought it was really related to the aspect of Pharaoh, is that there are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to Hashem, those who say to God, thy will be done, your will be done, and those to whom God, Hashem, says, okay, your will be done. So either we're going to him and saying, your will be done, Abba Father, you know best, or possibly he's saying to us, okay, buddy, okay, Mr., okay, Mrs., okay, whoever it is, you think you know best. Go ahead. Go that way, because you clearly don't want my way. So, a very beautiful image there, even this idea of hardening, that, yes, we know that Yah has a hand in strengthening the way that we would go, and so we must choose his way, and then to be assured and be strengthened internally in that inner man, right? We know with Messiah dwelling in our hearts, rooted and grounded in love, that we can be strengthened in his way by choosing him first. Okay, so that's about 8 o'clock. We're going into some bonus time there. I didn't see any other copy and pasted questions. I hope this was a blessing to you. I think we covered some good ground as we made our way plagues 1 through 7. Let me just see if there's anything else. And yes, questions about Hebrew in terms of studying, definitely. Go to the people and go to the person and the fellowship and the discipleship environment you have access to in terms of Hebrew. Dawid is very talented with Hebrew. He says, I have no authority to teach anything but Hebrew, and I know that is possibly on the plan of classes. In the meantime, there's an Ivrit Hebrew YouTube channel where you can just kind of repeat some basic Hebrew. But yes, in terms of the nuances, this is something I'm grateful for. Praise Yah, just for that background. And I mean, I'm nothing more than elementary school, but at least to have some insight into that. So praise Yah, all those years ago, to be able to put it into use to serve the body and hopefully edify one another. And so that's everything. So shalom, shalom. We will ask for a closing in prayer by one of the men. Thank you to all. Your comments take us possibly in directions we've been before, and then new directions. And so I hope there's one aspect of it that we can take away. And I think that quote of choosing Hashem's will over our own will, and the example of Pharaoh here, and the necessity for repentance is clear. Okay, so one of the men, please. I see a couple hands up. Give it another 5-10 seconds. Curtis asked, what teaching touches on the worldly holidays and the believer's response to them? It's littered throughout, to be honest. There's no exact one, but Rabbi Steve mentioned it earlier in the study in terms of not participating. Obviously there's different levels of a religious holiday of not participation, and then something like a New Year's or Thanksgiving. So there's not a direct teaching, but understanding the context, understanding, the world that we live in, and not to be celebrating it as in putting our focus
Thank you, Father, for just blessing us to be able to come together tonight and feast on your Torah. Thank you for all the things that you taught us tonight, for just allowing all the conversations. And thank you for allowing everyone to get out of it what you wanted us to get out of it. We thank you for just hearing the prayer requests we lifted up before you tonight. We wait to see how you are going to act on our behalf. We are trusting in you for all things. And Father, as we go through this week, we just ask that you would help us to choose your way and strengthen our hearts to walk after you and follow your Torah. We ask in Yeshua's authority. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mark. Again, thank you to everybody. All who's sharing, and it was Susan and Kimberly were our newcomers. So welcome and hope to see you again. We'll start the customary countdown as we wish each other shalom and keep each other in prayer that we can gather again. This would be on Shabbat, and then next week as we continue plagues 8, 9, and 10. Thank you to everyone with your comments. Love you dearly. Stay strong in the Master. Safe travels for all that are coming and going for operations and health and different interviews. The weed, can you call me after it? Like no wish? No rush? Like nowish. Oh, okay. Let me see. And I really like to eat dinner. So maybe send me a message on Facebook and we can take it from there. So where the Hebrew YouTube channel you mentioned, I think it's actually it's just called Learn Hebrew. I think they have like they just live stream. We'll keep going. Let's see. Yeah, it's just called Learn Hebrew Free. And this is more about conversational. So obviously to apply this and extrapolate it to the understanding of the word is a stretch, and that would require actual guidance, structure, and leadership. But in terms of some basic conversational aspect, it's there, and good to just get those gears moving and the vowels and everything. All right. Shalom, shalom. Blessings to all. I bless you. Bless me. Bless each other. Pray for each other in the name of Yeshua our Messiah. And with that, shalom, and see you